good afternoon. I am Ashley Johnson. I'm the staff veterinarian for PFFJ. We are actually a subsidiary of Hormel Foods, and unlike my two colleagues here, I'm sure everybody is familiar with them. Many of you don't know who I am or know who PFFJ is. And so to start out, if you can imagine going back out to the front of this hotel, hopping in an Uber, and driving about 20 minutes, depending on traffic, obviously, if it's rush hour, east of here, you'll actually land right to where I was born and raised. So now you have a question in your mind of, wait a minute, this girl up here is from D.C. and she's a pig vet? What happened there? How did that happen? So that's the number one question I always get. And so I, just like many of my fellow veterinarians ever since I was a little kid, couldn't pronounce the word, but I wanted to be a veterinarian. I always thought, of course, dogs and cats. I got accepted into Clemson University, go Tigers. And I actually, little did I know that the animal and veterinary science program was all agriculture. I had nothing to do with dogs and cats, so here I was with a huge challenge. And I actually ended up just head on, taking the bull by the horns and started working at the university swine farm. And I'll never forget the very first day I was working there. We had just loaded up some market hogs, and my farm manager turned to me and said, well, what kind of farm did you grow up on? And I flat out laughed in his face. I said, I'm from D.C., I'm not a farm girl, but I really loved the challenge, and I started to fall in love with the industry. I started to fall in love with the pig. And as I grew with my education, I started to realize the need of more large animal veterinarians. The voice of the producer has been lost. I go back home and, people are just so far removed from the farm. So I really loved it, and I carried it on into going to Virginia Tech's vet school. And there I actually am probably one of 4 people that graduated from there that actually work in the swine industry. And then I actually just kind of kept hopping around the ACC, as you can see. I then ended up at NC State working there with their area regional control programs, with PERS especially, and then, of course, PED came along. And then one day just got an offer out of nowhere from a company called PFFJ. And I had the same question as probably many of you in this room is, who is PFFJ? Simply put, it just stands for Pigs for Farmer John. Very good marketing behind that name. We were actually established in 1992 by a company called Farmer John. If you are out in the West Coast, if you go into your grocery store, especially in California, you'll find a product out there called Farmer John. I mean, it's farmer on the label and everything. And so we were actually the live production side that helped supply hogs to them. And then we actually ended up adding on sites in both California and Wyoming, 1995 and 2001. And then Hormel Foods saw an opportunity and came in and acquired us in 2004. Needed more pigs, so we acquired farms out in Colorado called Mountain Prairie. So to show you, just to give you a quick little show of where we are, a little bit spread out in interesting areas for pigs. I mean, Arizona, who would have thought? Our Arizona division, we have about 14,500 sows. We are a farrow-to-finish operation out there. And then out in California, it used to have sows out there, but they converted it all to grow-out. So they finish about 150,000 hogs a year. Our Wyoming is same amount of sows, about 14,500, but they just go to wean pigs, so they don't actually finish any pigs out there. And then the same thing with Mountain Prairie is that they are farrow to wean. So, but they're a little bit bigger of complexes, about 25,000 sows out there. So as we were preparing for this panel, the number one question, of course, is the challenges that we have facing in the industry, and especially related to antibiotic resistance, usage, stewardship. And I love to give this example to everyone, is our Arizona location. So this is actually a map of our Arizona location. And I hope the first thing that you realize is that there's all these different colors up here, right? Well, if you actually go and drive into our location, you go right past our sow farms, and actually that one very on the end is also our gilt farm and GDU. Then you just go right up the road, and all of a sudden you hit some finishers. And then all of a sudden you hit some nurseries. And then there's some more finishers and nurseries. And then if you go over to the other side, there's a wean to finish complex that I guess they decided was a good idea, and then some more finishers. I'm not sure who designed this, but I don't think they knew too much about pig diseases, and I think a lot of people in here are kind of cringing at the fact that this is all in one area. This is a huge challenge. We talk about disease prevention, we talk about biosecurity. I mean, if you can imagine, we have 200 and some employees on here. Think about them having to drive their own vehicles. Where do they drive? And when I first actually started working at PFFJ, we had our market trucks driving in the main entrance right past our sow farms, picking up the hogs and going right back out past our sow farms. And I was like, oh my, I got my hands full here. But all right, so let's take a look at this location. And this is the reality, and this is what people don't connect with. And even people within the industry that get pig production don't know that this even exists. And this is our reality, whether it's pigs, poultry, beef cattle. We have real deal things that, you know what, I can't pick that barn up and move it. It's there, I have to deal with it. And this is what our challenges are within the industry. And so I want to mention that PFFJ and Hormel actually have their same priorities when it comes to antibiotics. Antibiotic stewardship, I mean, you guys hit it on the nail of exactly what stewardship means to me. And I always think of a big circle. I think of a circle being you choose the antibiotic, you know, if you have a disease process and it's bacterial or you have secondary bacterial infections coming in, you choose the antibiotic. You then also evaluate how that antibiotic works. And then you make that full circle, and the piece that some people miss, but, you know, Dr. French here, of course, mentioned is what else can we do? So we don't have to reach up on the shelf and pick up that antibiotic. Is it something, you know, that's production-wise or biosecurity-wise? There's so many questions we can always pose to ourselves and to make ourselves better. One of the things that we do actually within PFFJ is we have what's called a QMS, our quality management systems. And this is great because if you visualize that map of us being in all these different states, and actually I'm the only staff veterinarian, so I can't quite run around into each state every single day. We have an online depository of all of our protocols, and that includes from the veterinary side, so treatments, medications. That includes with animal handling, animal welfare, production. I think even HR has a folder in there someplace, safety, pretty much everything. And the reason we do that is so that we have consistency and we are able to truly train our employees for knowing when a disease happens, how to treat that animal, and then to also help evaluate if that antibiotic isn't working. So at each of our locations too, which I think is really missed with the consumer, is that there's veterinary oversight at every single location. I think the typical consumer does not even realize that there is veterinary oversight of the, you know, the animals, you know, that are in our care. They think that, I think, you know, pigs are just kind of out on the ground and we're just kind of throwing feed at them and that's how they get their meat. And it's something that we need to continue to talk to the consumer about. And so we have VCPRs at all of our locations, and not just with myself, but also with the outside veterinary group that actually comes and helps and consults with us. And so what we end up doing is we can monitor all of our herds with all of this different communication, and even though we're in different states, we can monitor our antibiotic use, we can monitor you know, how it's working, if it's not working, and we can make informed decisions. And I think that's a really important key to take away, is that we're not just doing the same old, same old. If something isn't working, we're going to address that. We're going to make a decision based off of data and not just based off of you know, guessing on something. And the other thing I could do too is I can take a look at a farm, and if they're, you know, increased in something of their usage, I can actually go and pretty much investigate. Okay, well, is there a health outbreak, or maybe there's a retraining that needs to happen, or maybe it's just simply a curtain fell down and the pigs got chilled. there's so many things that can happen, but with this data, we can actually make informed decisions. So that's a big circle that we have at PFFJ with our antibiotic stewardship, of making sure that we can connect to our farms and make the appropriate decisions for our antibiotics. And then overall, we actually are committed to reducing the use of antibiotics. And the number one way of actually accomplishing this is simply just having healthy pigs. I mean, having healthy pigs, my job tends to get much, much easier. I mean, it's just great when you have a healthy pig, your production's up, you don't have to use as many antibiotics. But you know what? It takes commitment. It takes time because, you know, if you don't have the proper biosecurity in, good luck. You're going to have a market truck that goes right by your sow farm and you break with something. So you have to have, you know, prevention. You have to have money, time, because having a vaccination program takes a lot of support money-wise, financially, and it takes, you know, the support of others also, of other companies that help us out with preventing and eliminating diseases. But if that is the one thing that we are absolutely committed on, is making sure we have these high health herds, because that's the most important thing of reducing the use of antibiotics. But it's also important to keep in mind that, you know, we always have to think about the welfare of the animal, and of course I have to think about my oath as a veterinarian. If an animal needs treatment, we need to be able to treat that animal. So it's never going to be zero use of antibiotics if we're thinking in those terms. And then another thing that we're extremely committed to is partnerships. If you take a look around at this entire symposium, this is a partnership. We have just representatives from across the board, and it's exciting to see that, especially as a young professional as myself. I mean, what an exciting thing that we have the producer, we have, you know, government, and we have the veterinarian, we have medical. It's really exciting, and that's exactly what it's going to take to have to address these issues. And that is what PFFJ and Hormel Foods has absolutely taken seriously. As I said before, we partner with AMBC. They're an outside veterinary group with tons of experience, just wonderful veterinarians that they actually, we have a veterinarian coming onto our farm every month, every other month. I mean, absolutely just engaged with making sure that we have high health and have the programs in place with our pigs. Hormel Foods is so committed that a little over a year ago, they saw that this was a huge issue with antibiotic resistance and antibiotic usage, that they created a antibiotic working group. And it's not just the internal people like myself within Hormel, but we have industry experts, we have subject matter experts, we have government, NGOs. We have so many people involved in this group that is attacking this issue head on. And then within actually my company itself, PFFJ, we have a health summit every single year because we realize we don't have all the answers, and we need help to make sure that we have the correct things in place to be able to deal with antibiotic stewardship, to make sure that we are reducing the use of antibiotics and medically important antibiotics. So we actually have that every single year where we have other veterinarians, head of Iowa State Diagnostic Lab. I mean, so many people involved in helping us out, because we realize that this is such an important issue, especially not just for ourselves, but for the consumer and for the industry. So if you take away anything, you know, it's encouraging to see everybody here and to know that you know, we're committed too, and everybody kind of has to be committed on this front as well. And with antibiotic stewardship, reducing the use of antibiotics, and making sure that we have the partnerships to be able to do that.